even Kelsey. Travis Kelsey has been
You can keep it
a
going.
bum this year.
I think that the Chiefs kind of ruined the NFL in a way. The dad of the
Keep it
NFL.
going.
He looks like a legit starting quarterback that will play somewhere next year.
Yeah, okay, good morning, afternoon, and evening. It's the guy you should believe in. Dropping heat like every season. Underdog like Willie Beeman.
This
Plastic
Eagles-Cowboys
like
game is
dimes
honestly
singing.
terrible.
Blasted like bombs ringing.
Yeah, so we are recording while, if you guys can see, it is in the background. And I just want to say it is not looking good for the Eagles right now, especially going into the later half of the year. You definitely want to do the opposite. And
They peaked a little too early. And yeah, go ahead.
they definitely did. And I mean, like we said, the formula to beating them is just having more skill players than the Eagles. That's literally all you need to
In
beat
terms of receivers,
in terms of receivers, because their secondary just can't get it together right
they
now.
opened the game up really well in terms of running the ball, which is kind of crazy. Pollard opened the game pretty well, running the ball. Yeah, this is not looking good, and this is an important game. This is to tie up the division.
You know
at
what's
10-3.
insane? You know what's insane? The Cowboys have beaten one team over 500. They've beaten one team with a positive record. If they win this game, it is 50-50 on who is the first seed.
Yeah,
Dallas or the Eagles. That is ridiculous.
What's kind of funny to me is it wasn't to this degree with the Eagles last year. Like, they didn't play this many bad teams the same way the Cowboys have this yeyear. But this is kind of, we're seeing the same thing, like strength of schedule wise. Last year, the Eagles' strength of schedule was not very good, but they had the best record. They were undefeated for however long. And so, yeah, this is a huge game. This could end up both 10-3. And then from there, it's a race for number one in the NFC, which if the Cowboys get a bye, that changes everything in terms of who they're playing. Yeah.
To be fair, when they lost against the 49ers, they have played 3 games in 13 days.
Yeah.
Which is pretty exhausting for them.
Pretty
but
crazy.
yeah, but they got a full break against Dallas. It's not looking good for them. All right, let's go. Let's get into the next one.
All right. So let's talk about, we kind of brought it up earlier today. We said we were going to talk about it now, but what's the deal with backup quarterbacks this year? Obviously, we understand that there's been injuries. That's why there's a ton of them. They've been playing, but why have they been so good? Like, Jake Browning right now looks like a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, we've never seen it to this extent to where backups come in and then they just become the new starter. Right. And that's what has been happening across the board. Backups come in and they look better than the starters, which is you go.
And it's like, let's start with Jake Browning, because this has been a revelation. Well, this game in general, Garner and Jake Browning, he's been a revelation. And I understand that Burrow was hurt to start the year out, but he honestly looks better right now.
I think
looks better.
I think it's like what we said before. When you get a backup QB, you go back to the basics.
You simplify everything. And I mean, look at it. 18 for 24 throwing the ball, 275, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. On the other side of the ball, another backup, Gardner Minshew, 26 for 39, 240, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. It's pretty damn good.
And it makes you think with all of the QB issues that we're seeing in the league, we have legitimate backups that could start on a team at this very moment.
Well, the thing has always been, I think there's a couple of things here. Number one, I think it shows across the league, you have to invest in a good backup. Number one.
Yes, 100%.
2, I heard someone say this. I think it was Dan Orlovsky. I don't remember exactly who said it, but he was talking about how the difference between a starting quarterback and a backup quarterback in the NFL isn't necessarily talent. Sometimes it is. When we're talking about Josh Allen to whoever his backup is, it's certainly talent. Yes. But the biggest separator,
and it's certainly being 6'5", 230.
Right, talent and body comp, but outside of that, for a lot of these quarterbacks, what separates the starter and the backup is process speed. And with a lot of these backups, their process speed is slower, which is why they do so much better when you go back to basics. Because for them, they're used to, they just want to, they're just go out there and sling the rock. Just make it simple for me. I'll go sling the rock. I'll be a game but that's the thing. They're not being game managers. That's the wild part. We're not watching a bunch of game managers win games. We're watching guys win games with their arm, like actually win games. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing to do with it is that, like you said, is you're going back to basics and you're just saying, go sling the rock. And Jake Browning is doing that, and he has good weapons too. But you look at it, Garner Minshew, he's been in the system for almost the whole year at this point. It's not the basics anymore. And he's been playing out of his mind. He looks like a legit starting quarterback that will play somewhere next year. Another guy that it's a shorter stint, obviously. Josh Dobbs, another one that we've seen the last couple of weeks. Today looked crazy good. Was Joe Flacco. They literally pulled him off his couch. He threw for, let me get his completion percentage here. Because I have his
dad of the NFL.
Yeah, so his completion percentage wasn't great. It was 26 for 45, but he still threw for 311 yards with 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. Won that game against the Jags 31-27 going away. It was a bigger gap earlier in the game. The Jags made a little bit of an effort at the end there. Njoku walked away, 6 receptions, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. Another guy they pulled off the
I know it's showing that experience, that age, right?
Yeah.
We have this is a league of young quarterbacks, and it's nice to see an older gentleman going out there giving these kids a little ass whooping.
Just in general, backups in general, it's just been so interesting. And I think it really does have to do with, like we said, the going back to basics. And I think the NFL could do some good by just like going back to, we've gotten into such this pass centric era in the NFL. And it just goes to show you don't need like this game for Joe Flacco. Jerome Ford had 12 carries for 51 yards. And then Kareem Hunt had 10 carries for 27 yards. Remind me later about Kareem Hunt. There's something I was going to say to you about that. But I mean, you're getting a total of 78 rushing yards. So just enough to make it to convert when you need it. And then you have good enough weapons out there around him. And then you just go win football games with a good defense. Like, we're seeing the power of having a good defense and just not making mistakes. Broncos are doing it. Browns are doing it. The Jets did it today. The Colts have been doing it for a while, like not today, but they've been doing it for a while. The Bengals are playing really well. All these are backup quarterbacks. Even like, we've seen the resurgence of Justin Fields, not a backup quarterback, but we see the power of that defense and then simplifying everything. They simplified everything for him and he looks insane. He threw for 223, 1 touchdown, and was just about 50% on the day. And then DJ Moore went crazy himself. But so like, Justin Fields isn't a backup, but they've simplified the system for him and the defense is playing better. They beat the Lions today.
What a crazy upset that was.
And it wasn't a close game. Like, it was 28-13. The Lions are looking like shambles right now. And the Bears, and they just simplified everything and played defense. And hopefully this lesson, this gets broadened across the league. We see
I think that the Chiefs kind of ruined the NFL in a way, because the Chiefs were super successful, right? 2 Super Bowls. And their whole mentality was, let's make up plays. Let's do trick plays. Let's be I don't want to use the word finesse, maybe a little bit tricky, maybe a little bit smarter, right? Don't want to use the word finesse. People get mad when you call their team a finesse team. But I think they did kind of ruin the NFL because everybody else started doing the same thing. A lot more trick plays. How many flipping, I don't know what it's called, but when it's a jet sweep right underneath the quarterback and they pitch it. How many of those have we seen lately? That's had a huge uptick in the NFL. And then also the amount of laterals as well. That's more Travis Kelce than anything, doing all these laterals and all this.
We'll get to the Chiefs game in a little bit. Trust me.
Yeah.
I got some
But
words
I do
for
want to say
the
that
Chiefs.
I think that that is the reason why we've been seeing all these guys who have been consistently great, and then they're coming out here and they're having a hard time playing the game of football. It's because
Too complicated.
everybody's trying to follow the same thing, right? Like
You're
we
just
don't know
yeah.
what the Chiefs going to do, so like let's do the same. But you
It,
really don't need that.
well, they're just outsmarting themselves. They're just making it harder than it needs to be. They're making the execution, like we talked about with these teams that are just playing defense and executing like the Broncos. They're not trying to be fancy. They're just
And like the Packers.
yeah, they're not trying to be fancy. They're just playing football. Like it's everyone watched the Chiefs like you're talking about play and do all these crazy things and all these, when the play breaks down, extending the play and doing all this stuff with Travis Kelce and Mahomes, and everyone wanted to follow the trend, but not everyone has a Mahomes. And even
Really,
Mahomes doing it this year, it hasn't looked good, which we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but
it's Troy Aikman's fault. It's him. Every single flipping game that he's announced for Patrick Mahomes, not even games that he's announcing. He could be announcing a different game, and like the guy breaks the pocket and makes a good play, and he's like, "Oh, you know who that looks like? That looked like Mahomes right there."
that's the NFL sliding him an extra check every week to see how many times he can get Mahomes into the broadcast.
For real.
That's all.
Yeah,
I definitely
think the status and the fame that their offense has gained has changed the NFL in a way that we're finding out doesn't need to be that way. Like, yes, it works for them, but it doesn't work for other teams.
Well, and it's funny because in those years where they were throwing the ball 50 times a game, that's not good. Like most games that you win, you're throwing the ball between, I think the number was like 30 and I don't know, I think it was between 25 and 35. The most games you're winning are when you're throwing the ball between those numbers. And so my point is with that is it's funny because everyone wants to be the Chiefs and throw the ball 50 times, but they were doing it because they didn't have a run game. And now that they have a run game, it's different. They're not throwing the ball as much, and they don't have as good of receivers. So we seem to kind of want to talk about the Chiefs. So let's move on to that. But essentially, I think we're hitting it right on the nose, is that these teams with good backup quarterbacks are playing mistake-free. They're playing good defense, and they're just executing. They're just simplifying everything and executing. And that's basically what it's coming down to.
Before we move on, I just want to put a little bit more props into Aiden O'Connell and then also Tommy DeVito. Both of those guys have stolen the number one spot, playing great.
Well,
even
Aiden O'Connell's,
even
Aiden
with
O'Connell's been, Tommy DeVito has been a meme, but I get your point. Okay, let's talk about the Chiefs and wrap up here. All right, we called it. Bills won today. We called that game. Mahomes lost it at the end of the game.
I saw that, and I don't know the opinion you're going to have, but I like it.
Yeah,
I like
100%.
I like having people fired up.
I'm in
because it just, I thought you were going to be like, oh, crybaby Mahomes. No, I love it. I want my quarterback to be like that.
I on the broadcast, they said that he was yelling at the refs. I don't care if he's yelling at the refs or at his players, but in the refs case, I can understand on Monday, we're going to see everyone saying crybaby Mahomes. If it is the refs he's yelling at, I understand though. That's pretty ridiculous in the NFL that you're like letting a guy line up in the neutral zone and you're not. I don't know. I don't know if I'll have to watch the play again. I don't know if Kadarius Toney looked down at the line judge, right, and asked him if he was on sides. If he didn't, then that's completely on him, right? If he didn't, that's on him. But if he did, that's shameful on the NFL's part. Like for the refs, that's shameful. And either way, though, if he's yelling at the refs for that kind of thing, or he's yelling at his guys, he should be. They're ridiculous. They're playing these receivers outside of Rashee Rice have been shameful. Even Travis Kelce has been a bum this year. If we're being honest, he's been pretty bad this year.
Well, I think the problem is you don't have anybody to take off of Kelce, right? Even though Rashee Rice is playing great right now, but that's because they're double teaming Kelce. which in the years prior, you had players that they would have to look out for, and they wouldn't just only worry about Kelsey.
But they didn't really, though. They've never, like, in the years they've won the Super Bowl, they didn't really have a guy outside of Kelsey that was really commanding anything. Like last year when they won the Super Bowl, who was the number one receiver? Juju Smith-Schuster. And that's like, you know what I mean? So it's like, even in years prior, they haven't had like that number one guy.
I do want to say, I think it's only right that he's mad at the refs, right? Because you also have to take into account last week's game against the Packers, that egregious PI that was not called, that potentially cost them the game, right? Even though we're not going to get into the sideline hit and how they got 15 yards from that. We're not going to get into that. But that PI was just the most blatant PI we've seen in a long time. Didn't get called. And then now he's losing again, apparently because of the refs. Like, obviously he's going to be fired up.
Yeah. And especially on that play, that is a direct, he's losing that game. It's not like they would have went down and scored. No, they did. They did. And it was a crazy play. That was one of the most ridiculous plays I've ever seen. Travis Kelce, did you see how tight of a spiral that ball was that Kelce threw while getting tackled? Man turned and said, "Resume." And then, so
that's going to be on the New Heights podcast. It's be the first thing they talk about.
Oh, 100%. But on the bright side here, if they are able to turn it around, the other thing is too about this game that I think we're forgetting about and most people won't talk about is they didn't have Isaiah Pacheco. They didn't have the 5-yard. They didn't have the option to press X and just run through face play in the A gap. Like they didn't have that play.
Stop saying that.
Why?
Because we have to cut it out.
It's my one thing. Okay.
All right.
I've only said it once.
Last pod, you dropped it like 10 times.
Yeah. Okay. I'm saying it. I said it once. Moving on. They didn't have that option. They didn't have the option to just blast Isaiah Pacheco at the A gap. They didn't have that option this game. And so
they didn't have the option to throw Pacheco at a brick wall to see if he breaks through it or not.
They didn't have that option, which is helpful. It honestly is. But anyways, outside of that, at least we are seeing you're talking about, you said it earlier, Rashee Rice, and I've been talking about it. It's becoming a thing. He's that number one receiver outside of Kelsey, 7 receptions, 72 yards and a touchdown. He's a red zone threat. 10 targets. I'd like to see him catch probably 1 or 2 more. That would feel a little bit better, but still, he did have a fumble and lost it today. So that wasn't exactly reassuring. But yeah, I mean, the rest of these receivers, I'm looking down the line here. You got Kelsey 6 for 83, Rice 7 for 72, and then it drops off and you get Clyde Edwards-Helaire 2 for 29, Kadarius Toney 3 for 25, Marquez Valdes-Scantling 2 for 22, 1, and it just keeps going down the board. So it's tough pickings for the Chiefs right now. On the other side of it,
Josh Allen played a great game.
And I saw a video today where someone was talking about how we talk about how much Josh Allen turns the ball over, but we don't talk about the rest of the story. Essentially, the short version of it is, yes, he turns the ball over, but they win games.
You know who said that?
Who?
Me. I said that. We've had a conversation where I was like, he turns the ball over too much. And you were saying, doesn't matter because they win.
That's true. That was like the first pod we ever did.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
that's crazy. True. A little crazy callback. But yeah, I do want to give props to Josh Allen, 233 yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception. There is a play in there.
2 total touchdowns, 1 passing, 1
rushing. There is a play in there. Let's talk about the rushing touchdown where he's got the entire defense just swarming him. And this 230-pound man is flipping, driving the pile 5 yards into the end zone.
Yeah. His QBR was terrible today, but otherwise
he still got it done.
Yeah, no, he got it done. I'm just saying that's the only pitfall there. He was not very efficient on the day, but still got the job done.
And I mean, that's what we've been talking about. Josh Allen is always going to try his hardest, even when which today it looks like the team's back on his side. Before there was troubles in the locker room, it looked like his team was not happy with him. And then he goes out against the Eagles, plays his ass off, a rushing touchdown for there. And then you called it. One passing touchdown, one rushing touchdown, didn't get 300 plus yards, 233 yards, but you almost called it to a T.
Yeah.
Josh Allen is the dog, and he's going to do whatever it takes to win. And I think that's why Buffalo loves him.
I think the only thing here that troubles me is 4 receptions on 11 targets for 24 yards for Stephon Diggs. That's terrible. 4 receptions on 11 targets. And I get that he's drawing, tougher coverage and all that. But when you've got James Cook as your leading receiver for the game, that doesn't feel good.
This is a little bit of a conspiracy theory, but we've been talking about how Stephon's not happy with Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
So it could potentially be Josh Allen is saying, hey, we don't need you.
Could be.
We only need a guy to take players away. We have all these other guys that we can use.
Could be.
That's just a conspiracy theory. We don't know. We don't know how the locker room is now that they've been winning or after that game, but it could be.
I don't think it is, being that he's still getting 11 targets because that he's still trying to throw to him. I would agree with you if it was like 5 targets and then, Dalton Kincaid had, 10 targets and, Shakir had, 11 target, whatever. I can understand that if the other guys are getting more targets, but Stephon's still the guy in, leading targets in the clubhouse. So
how'd Gabe Davis do?
I'm not even sure he played. He had 2 targets, 0 receptions, 0 yards.
Wow. Okay. So I'm trying to be more positive, but I took back my statement about Gabe Davis. I said that he just had one bad play. 2 targets, 0 receptions, 0 yards. I'm back on the Gabe Davis hate train.
I mean, but that's his role, though. There's going to be games where he just blocks, and then there's going to be games where he goes off for 100. You don't know. He's a boomer bust guy, but I didn't watch him very closely. I was more focused on the shambles Chiefs offense. So I don't really know. I didn't really get like a look at what his attitude during the whole game was, at least outwardly. But yeah, looking up and down though, the Bills are looking to turn it around. The Chiefs keep losing. The playoff picture right now. Let's look at the playoff picture because it is an interesting one in the AFC right now. Baltimore's 10-3. Miami is 9-3. Kansas City still sits in the 3rd seed currently at 8-5. Jacksonville 8-5. Cleveland has now jumped into the 5th seed at 8-5. Pittsburgh is 7-6. Indiana rounds up the playoffs at 7-6 as well. But then you have Houston, Denver, Cincinnati, and Buffalo all sitting at 7-6, knocking on the door.
And that's very scary, especially with Cincinnati, with Jake Brown and how he's been playing, and Denver. I mean, we've been talking about Denver, the Reaper, coming out of nowhere, going on that winning streak.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're 1 game out. And we currently right now have they are winning in the division, but if they drop, let's see, let's look at the rest of their schedule. They have the Pats next week, which is a little bit spooky. Then they've got the Raiders, and then they've got a game against the Bengals, and then they've got the Chargers.
I would love to see them play the Bengals.
I could see them ending the year 2-2. I could see them finishing the year out 2-2. I could see them dropping against the Patriots, and then I could see them beating the Raiders, beating the Chargers, and dropping against the Bengals.
Okay, why the Patriots?
Is it
because they won? Is it because they won?
It's because it's literally just because of their defense. And the way and how bad the Chiefs have been playing right now, they're going to take away, like Bill Belichick is known for taking away your number 1 guy. So you take Kelsey off the board. He's probably going to have 5 receptions for 40 yards, right?
I thought we were talking about the Broncos schedule.
No. I'm talking about the Chiefs schedule.
Oh, I thought you were talking about this is who the Broncos have to play. Oh my
No,
goodness.
no,
I'm so sorry. My bad.
no, no. I'm talking about the Chiefs schedule right now. I'm saying because I'm talking about the possibility of the Broncos winning the division.
Yeah.
So right now I can see the Chiefs ending the year 2-2, and I can see the Broncos winning out, just straight up winning out because they've got Lions, they're shambles right now. They've got Patriots, that's an ugly game. Then they've got Chargers again and Raiders, which I think Brandon Staley's probably going to get fired, and they're probably just going to sit Herbert down for the rest of the year. There's no reason to keep playing him. And then the Raiders shambles. So they could go 2-2 too, and then it comes down to
So really,
tiebreaker in the division,
it's
or
whoever beats the Patriots.
pretty much.
It's whoever beats Bill.
I think so.
That is pretty scary, especially if Bill knows that. Bill's looking, and he knows that. He's looking at he's like, the Chiefs and the Broncos, huh?
Right. And I think right now the Broncos are better equipped to beat the Chiefs right now.
I agree. I agree with that.
And the Lions are just I don't know if they know how to play football still.
I think the reason why the Broncos are more equipped is because of their defense compared to the Chiefs defense.
Because and going on that as well is we were just talking about them not making mistakes. The Chiefs are riddled with mistakes. That's all they're doing right now.
True. Very true.
So, that's why I think the Broncos have a better chance of winning out at the end of the year. And let's say they do. They end the year 11-6, and the Chiefs walk out 10-7, and we win that division.
I'm going to go completely away from what you're talking about for a sec because I just thought of something. Patrick Mahomes being pissed off at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
He goes home. Who's there? His girlfriend and Jackson Mahomes.
His wife, you mean?
Yeah, his wife and Jackson Mahomes. Oh my goodness. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple wine bottles getting thrown that night. I don't know how he's been this good coming off of like losses where he's angry and he has to go home to his little brother and his wife.
I don't think his little brother lives with him.
You don't think so?
No.
You don't think he's at his house after the loss with his phone ready to make a TikTok?
No.
And then they have to fight to delete the video?
No.
I think that's Patrick Mahomes' daily life is having to deal with Jackson Mahomes and his wife.
Okay. I want to talk about something a little more important.
Wow, that is important.
No, it's not. I'm looking at the playoff picture right now.
Mm.
And I don't know. I would love, it's not going to happen. I think Cleveland ends up sticking around and making the playoffs.
With Mr. Joe?
And I honestly think the Steelers might eke it out. And really, we're just looking at possibly the Broncos winning their division and jumping up into third. And then Indiana, I think, could drop out. But that leaves basically one playoff spot. And I think, I don't know. Because imagine if there's a world where the Chiefs drop to 7 and they got to go play Miami first round.
Ooh, that is, yeah. And I think they lose that.
Yeah. And then they're out. And that leaves the AFC wide open.
Yeah, it does.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Baltimore in the Super Bowl then.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody and he said that he picked Baltimore to go to the Super Bowl this year, which starting out the year, not a great pick at all. But I mean, looking at them now, especially that overtime win, I don't know the guy's name. I'll look at it next pod. We'll have something for it. That overtime long run, like 50-yard plus run.
Oh, I know you're talking about. Yeah, I'll have to look at.
But it's interesting. You said the Steelers. They just lost.
They're still 7-6, so they're sitting in the 6th seed right now.
But they have Trubisky.
Well, Kenny might be back.
Oh, is he?
I don't know. They said that he went in to just have surgery, and I guess it was basically just a scope. And so he was on a boot, but they said like 3 weeks. So I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, Trubisky 190, 1 TD, 1 interception. Not terrible for a backup coming in, but I mean, when you're this late and you're going on a loss, you're trying to make the playoffs, it's tough. And
What's their schedule look like?
That's a good question.
Steelers, Bengals, Seahawks, or sorry, not Steelers. Colts.
They got to play themselves every single week.
Colts, Bengals, Seahawks, Ravens.
So I predict them losing against
everyone
Seahawks.
but the Colts.
Yeah, literally everyone except for the Colts. And it's only because, well, it's really like we were giving them praise. It's only because they lost this week. I mean, the Colts are still that team. I mean, Zach Moss's production has been way under what we were hoping it would be, especially seeing him play so great at the beginning of the season. Yeah. Now that we're in the time that it matters, he's not looking like a number 1 RB. I don't know what's up with that. He was like clearly could have started on another team, like the Ravens, perhaps. And then now he's looking like a secondary running back.
Texans don't have a very easy schedule to end the year. Kind of. I could see them going 2-2. They've got Titans, Browns, Titans, Colts.
It just depends on if Will Levis was sniffing battery acid before the game or not.
And it also matters how long CJ Stroud's going to be out, because he's in concussion protocol.
That is true.
And so I wouldn't be surprised because I wouldn't be surprised if he misses next game and they play the Titans and we've got to watch Davis Mills play quarterback again. They might drop that game. Then they come back. Then he comes back. And that first week, who's he got to play? The Browns. They drop that game. Then they play the Titans again. They might win that game, but then they got to play the Colts. And that's going to be a good game to end the year. That's going to be a really important game. They could end up dropping out of the playoff. They could end up losing their chance to be playoff relevant if they lose next week against the Titans.
Very true. And here's the thing is Derrick Henry always towards the later half of the season starts picking up because they need him to clinch the playoffs. We see it every single year. Once we're in that zone to where they need to get into the playoffs, Derrick Henry just starts being a machine. And we saw that last week. We might see it Monday night. And if we see it Monday night, it's pretty clear that, okay, Derrick Henry's going all out again. And they have a great chance with Derrick Henry playing like he did. If Derrick Henry plays like he did last week for the entire rest of the season, Titans have a legitimate shot of making the playoffs.
How about that?
It's because you're a Derrick Henry hater.
I am. The Bills don't have a very pleasant schedule either to end the year. They've got Cowboys, Chargers, Patriots, Dolphins.
I think they wipe Patriots.
This feels like a chaos scenario at its finest. These last 4 weeks.
That's what I'm saying though, is because like we picked the Bills for the script, right? And it works so perfectly for the NFL because now you have all of these teams that you don't know who's making it.
Chaos script. This is craziness.
Chaos group. That's exactly what the NFL wants. It's all scripted. It's all just a movie. It's all just a season. That's all it is. A season of a TV show is what I'm trying to say.
And then, I mean, we won't go too far into the NFC, but you've got the same thing right now in the NFC. New Orleans, Atlanta, Seattle, and the Rams are all sitting at 6 and 7, which is disgusting. I
think the Rams
possible playoff guys.
Pull it out. Out of everyone, I think the Rams pull it out.
Tampa Bay won today. That was a big win. They take the division back.
Baker Mayfield's been playing great. Nobody's been talking about him. He's been playing fantastic. Ever since he figured out that Mike Evans is his man, right? Like Chris Godwin is a great player. But here's the thing. He doesn't like throwing those short ones. Baker Mayfield likes throwing it long. And what does Mike Evans do great? He's great with the long ball. Ever since he figured that out, they have been winning and they've been putting up spectacular numbers.
I don't know about spectacular, but pretty good.
I mean, for what they were doing at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. For who we're talking about, yeah, they're pretty good.
I mean, to be fair, Mike Evans had like 3 points in fantasy this week, but we're not going to dwell on that.
So, yeah, end all be all. This is going to be a really fun end of the year. Usually the last 4 weeks are kind of like there's like a couple games that matter, and you're kind of looking for certain games at certain weeks to where you see where teams rise and fall. But every game matters. From 6 to 11, every game matters.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Cool. All right.
You've been ever since you started munching on snacks. I've been waiting to tell you to wrap it up. This guy goes the whole podcast. He starts munching on snacks. Everything I say, he's just like, yeah. And then like we start talking about something else. This man's munching on snacks and he's done. He's out of here. Wrap us up.
All right, we recapped the NFL week. We talked about why backup quarterbacks have been so good this year. If for whatever reason you want to see more of our faces, you can see it. You can catch us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at buffet.sports. That's Zane. I'm Devin. Ciao.